We turn back now to politics and to our regular Politics Monday pair, Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report and Tamara Keith of NPR. Welcome to both of you. So I think by my calendar, we are now in day 6 following the saga of the departed White House aide Tam, Rob Porter, after allegations of domestic abuse by both of his former wives. The White House still apparently struggling to explain what happened, how they handled it. Are we any clearer on how they did handle it?
Not really. We get new timelines on a semi-regular basis, and today Sarah Sanders delivered what was a new timeline that encompassed some of the previous timelines. And the basic message was, within 24 hours of learning the full extent of the accusations, he was gone. However, there have been, the chief of staff, General Kelly, has tried to say that he acted within 40 minutes. It's not clear what that actually means, because within that 24-hour period and well after that 40 minutes, the White House was still on the record praising Rob Porter. And then, of course, you have the President of the United States, who on Friday came out and said that he hoped that Porter would get a great new job, that he was a valued member of the White House team. So sort of contradicting the distancing that other White House aides have been trying to do.
Excuse me. And then the president, Amy, tweeted on Saturday basically sympathy for people who were accused, in his words, wrongly of these kinds of things.
So there are two branches to this story. The one is the sort of narrative that's we've seen now for this entire year, which is the lack of vetting for many of the staffers, the chaos inside the White House, the sloppiness inside the White House, just in terms of the staffing and dealing with when there's internal problems. But then the other branch of this is the issue of women. And we are now in the middle of a reckoning on discrimination and violence against women and assault against women, which is taking this in an entirely different direction. The president, of course, not simply just defending Porter as a person and saying good things about him, but also going on to say, I don't know, maybe this Me Too, he didn't say it exactly like this, but maybe this Me Too movement has gone a little bit too far. Why aren't we talking about the people who have been accused? We've spent way too much time focusing on the accusers and taking their word for it. That's very much out of step with at least where we know as a society and where other industries have gone, which is to say, we're going to believe the accusers first, and then we're going to start talking about those who are accused.
But you did have the press secretary, Sarah Sanders, Tam, today saying, well, I talked to the president and he told me to tell you, meaning to the press corps, that domestic abuse should not be tolerated in any form.
Right, and then the question was, well, why doesn't he just tell us that himself, or why doesn't he tweet it? You know, the one time that we know of that President Trump has been asked by reporters about the Me Too movement, it happened in the same time that he was also asked about Roy Moore. This was back in November. And it's a fascinating 45 seconds where he was asked about the Me Too movement. He says, it's great that some of these things are coming to light. Women should be heard. And then within 30 seconds was also saying, Roy Moore denies it. We should hear what he says. We should listen to him. And Roy Moore being the Alabama Senate candidate who President Trump endorsed. So there is this sort of distinction between people that President Trump likes and knows and has spoken to, and abstract others, Democrats, Harvey Weinstein, or Al Franken, who President Trump has a very easy time criticizing and didn't talk about a rush to judgment.
Well, let's talk, Amy, for a minute about what the White House did want to talk about, and that is the release of their 2019 fiscal budget, which, as we pointed out earlier, deficits are not a major feature. Every budget statement, whether it's going to pass or not, is a statement of political priorities.
That's right. That's right. And as a lot of people have talked about, Republicans, at least since Obama was in office, made debt and deficit a central argument. Certainly in the 2012 election, that was the Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan message that this President Barack Obama had just been responsible for skyrocketing debt and deficits that are going to be burdening our children from here to kingdom come. What's interesting, though, is ever since 2012, you've seen sort of a decrease in the intensity in which Republicans have sort of made this argument about debt and deficit. President Trump, as a candidate, he did talk about, I'm going to balance the budget in 8 years, but he also said, I'm not going to cut entitlements. He also talked about big spending on infrastructure and on the military. So he did not run as a Paul Ryan fiscal conservative. He ran as a Trump Republican, which is, I'm going to talk about some of these issues, but fundamentally, you're going to be able to, I'm going to be able to do both of those things.
And one of the political questions, of course, emerging from this, Tam, is there some sort of political price to pay among Republican voters?
And that is a very good question, and the answer to it isn't particularly clear. The ranking of among all voters of what is your top issue, what is the thing you care about the most, debt and deficit have just been falling like a rock in terms, and probably in large part because Republican leaders aren't talking about it in the way that they have in the past. Mick Mulvaney was asked today, he's the budget director, what happened to Mick Mulvaney, the deficit hawk? And he's like, well, he's still here, but he understands, and because the White House budget shows a deficit and doesn't balance the budget, he's like, but Mick Mulvaney understands that it's up to Congress to do these things, and when we ask them to, they just don't.
We're going to have to leave it there. Lots more opportunities to talk about deficits in the future. Tam, Amy, thank you both.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.